One sentence, one number, that's all it takes to change the outcome of an entire negotiation. And the most dangerous part? Most people never even realize it's happening. Long before a property is sold, its value is often being shaped inside someone's mind. Today, we're going to explore one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms in negotiation, the low anchor technique. Welcome to the hidden psychology of property deals. I'm Yannis Kallieris. For more than 25 years, I've observed negotiations, transactions, investors, buyers, sellers, and brokers. And one lesson kept repeating itself. Many negotiations are won or lost before the negotiation even begins. Today's chapter is called the low anchor technique. I remember sitting in a meeting many years ago. The property had been carefully evaluated. The owner knew the market. The numbers were solid. Everything pointed to a certain value range. Then someone at the table casually said, "Realistically, you're probably looking at something closer to..." And they mentioned a number. A lower number, nothing aggressive, nothing dramatic. Just a number. The conversation continued. Arguments were exchanged, opinions were shared. But something had already changed. Without realizing it, everyone in the room had started negotiating around that number, not around the property's value, around the anchor. That was the moment I truly understood the power of the first number mentioned in a negotiation. Most people believe that negotiations revolve around the final price. Experienced negotiators know something different. The most important number is often the first one, because the first meaningful number introduced into a conversation becomes a reference point, a mental starting position, an anchor. And once that anchor is established, every future discussion begins revolving around it, even when the anchor itself has no logical basis. The low anchor technique. Everyone who looks at properties in listings knows that the listing price is not the price at which the sale will eventually close. They know it is usually higher than the seller's real expectation, and that in the end, everything will move lower. I have even seen mathematical formulas used by brokers indicating, depending on the type of property, what the listing price, what the initial price should be, and then what price range they expect negotiations to move within. So I reached the conclusion that in real estate negotiations, the first real price is not the market price. It is the price that defines the framework inside which all following negotiations will move. At first, everything seems simple. The owner, on one side, has one price in mind, the buyer, on the other, has another. And somewhere between them, negotiation appears. What most people fail to understand is that the first substantial price that is mentioned does not function merely as an offer. It functions as an anchor, a reference point around which the entire discussion will revolve. If the first anchor is low, then the rest of the game is already being played on a reduced level. The buyer who hears a property presented for the first time at a lower price does not think this offer is low. He thinks, and perhaps this is the real value. And from that moment, the negotiation no longer begins from the actual value of the property, but from the anchor that was placed first. What is interesting is that the low anchor does not need to appear aggressive or obvious. Very often it appears through informal conversations. If you want it sold quickly, it needs a small adjustment. The market no longer supports previous levels. If it enters slightly lower, it will move fast. None of these are final offers, but all of them shape the framework. And in real estate transactions, the framework is more powerful than the proposal itself. Because once the low anchor has been created, every following discussion no longer begins from how much is the property worth, but from how far is it from what has already been said. And this is how the dynamic of the negotiation changes without the owner even realizing it. Little by little, his original price is no longer compared to the market. It is compared to an artificially lower base. Law of the price anchor. The first price mentioned in a negotiation is not evaluated, it is imprinted. Psychological anchor. Equation: perceived price equals initial anchor plus negotiation. Distance. In simple terms, the final perception of value does not begin from the real market, but from the first number introduced into the discussion. The paradox is that many owners believe they are resisting market pressure, while in reality they are already resisting a framework that was shaped before the negotiation even began. And the longer the process lasts, the more reasonable the low anchor begins to appear compared to the original expectation, until the moment when the original price no longer appears realistic, but excessive. And at that point, the negotiation is no longer about the value of the property. It is about how far someone can move away from the first number that was spoken. And in that stage, the battle has already been transferred from the market into the mind. So what can we learn from this? First, never confuse the first number with the correct number. They are rarely the same thing. Second, before entering a negotiation, define your own reference point. Research the market. Know the numbers. Create your own anchor before someone creates one for you. Third, whenever you hear a surprisingly low offer, pause before reacting emotionally, because surprise itself is often part of the strategy. The low anchor technique reveals something uncomfortable about human psychology. We like to believe that we evaluate value objectively, but in reality, we often evaluate value relative to whatever came first. The first number creates the frame, and once the frame changes, our perception changes with it. That is why negotiations are rarely mathematical exercises. They are psychological environments. The next time someone presents a number to you, ask yourself a simple question. Is this number describing reality, or is it trying to create reality? Because sometimes the most expensive mistake in a negotiation is accepting someone else's starting point as your own. In our next episode, we'll explore a phenomenon that almost every experienced investor eventually encounters: the property that burns out. The moment when a property stops being seen as an opportunity and starts becoming a question. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. New chapters and new psychological insights from the world of real estate are coming soon. And if you know someone currently buying, selling, or negotiating a property deal, share this episode with them. It may save them thousands. I'm Yannis Kallieris. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next chapter of the hidden psychology of property deals.